Welcome to this Toolkit for Resilience webinar, which will focus on the Circle of Influence. It forms part of the SME Tools to Prevent Burnout project, which is funded by the Erasmus Plus programme. The agenda of this webinar will be to first look at Stephen Covey's ideas around proactive and reactive behaviour. Then we will look at elephant tasks, a way of breaking down your to-do list. After that, we will look at how to train your proactivity and the proactivity of others. Finally, we will look at how to encourage proactivity in your employees. So, what are the main challenges faced by managers at work? Well, some examples might include responding to the ever-changing job market, overseeing the expansion of your product or service, listening and acting upon your customer demands. And then there's the issue of managing internal processes, including communication and cooperation within your team. Which of these challenges do you think you could do something about? Where do you have the room to make the most changes? There are two possible reactions when you face any challenge: proactive or reactive. But what does this mean? The difference between proactive and reactive thinking and being depends on your perception. Proactive people view their workload with a focus on the things they can influence rather than those they cannot. There will always be things that you cannot control, so it is not effective to spend time worrying or stressing about this. Easier said than done though, I know. With this in mind, think of your workload. Let's try and let go of the stresses that lie beyond your control. Can you think of any stress factors that you could rule out? Imagine this situation. You and your team want to relax and recuperate and enjoy a well-deserved reward. You decide to organise a picnic in the park as a nice outdoor activity and enjoying the glorious sunshine. However, it rains on the day of your picnic. You can't go ahead with the original plan. What do you do now? How do you feel? How do you respond? Perhaps you have a reactive response. You say things like, "This always happens to me." Maybe you decide to cancel the day out and say, "I don't have a choice." Do you identify with these reactions? Or maybe you have a proactive response. You take control of the situation and do not let the weather stop you. You can see the bigger picture. The purpose of the day was to let your colleagues relax and enjoy a reward, rather than have a picnic per se. You decide to look at your options and change the plan to bowling instead. Let's look a bit further into the behaviours of reactive people. A reactive thinker dwells on the things that they cannot influence, which means they focus on the weaknesses and problems, bringing about a negative mindset, where they feel helpless in their actions. Because of this, reactive thinkers often view most tasks as impossible or failures and totally outside of their control. They pay attention to the weaknesses, problems, and decide that they can't make changes. They feel like victims of circumstance. This means that their circle of influence shrinks, and they often neglect issues that they could influence that do lie within their circle of influence as a result. This leaves them feeling more helpless, overwhelmed and stressed, and as a result of this, their resilience falls, leaving them feeling even less able to cope with difficult situations. Therefore, they cannot see outside of their immediate situation and struggle to see how they fit into the bigger picture. But what are the behaviours of proactive people? Proactive people focus on things that they can influence, which means they use their time more effectively and productively. This allows them to let go of issues beyond their control. It means that they take responsibility for their tasks by deciding that they can and will do something about changing their situation, which allows them to act more decisively within their circle of influence. This raises their resilience by drawing the focus to the things that they can influence and letting go of those that they cannot. They will begin to take concrete action and to spread positivity. They can make choices based on their needs and take time to step back and see the bigger picture before allowing themselves to feel stressed over a particular issue. They will experience higher levels of resilience, which will reduce the amount of stress that they face, which in turn means that they are more effective at dealing with any stress that they do end up facing. So, which one of the following are you? Let's say your boss needs a task to be done. You are busy, as usual, and so are all of your colleagues. What do? Do you wait to be told that you must do it before you say, okay, I will, and you get on with the task, like person one? Do you volunteer yourself when your boss asks who can do the task? You say, no problem, I'll do it, like person two. Or do you take initiative and make suggestions before your boss has even considered that the task needs to be done, like person three? If you were like person one, you took reactive ownership over that situation. You waited for your boss to tell you that the task needed to be done, and you only acted when being told to do so. If you were like person two, you took active ownership over that situation. You put yourself forward for a task when it was needed. If you were like person three, you took proactive ownership over that situation. Well done. You didn't have to wait to be asked. You had already thought about what you could do within your circle of influence and how you could have a positive impact. Now let's look at elephant tasks. The idea of an elephant task is a way of approaching a huge and seemingly impossible task, the ones that we face in our everyday lives. These tasks are often overwhelming, with employees often not knowing where to begin. They can trigger reactive behaviour, not least because people often procrastinate from these tasks the most. By using the metaphor of an elephant for the large task to be completed, we are able to make these tasks much more manageable. Imagine dividing your elephant into smaller, bite-sized pieces. You've got the trunk, 4 legs, a tail, 2 large ears, and a back. By separating the tasks into smaller parts, it will help you to minimize your stress and boost your energy. Which part of the elephant will you focus on today? Let's say you're writing a report. The 4 legs represent the research and the gathering of information, which form the basis of the document. Maybe you aim to complete the legs over the course of a week. Then you've got 2 large ears. These could represent formatting and structuring the document, a task which you decide you will leave to near the end. The trunk on the elephant's face represents the introduction. You decide to tackle this after the legs to set the overall picture and to help you get into the flow of writing. The back, the largest part of the elephant, is the main body of the report. You do this once you have prepped the legs and the trunk to help stick everything together. Then, finally, you can't forget to add the tail. This will represent the task of editing the final document. Perhaps you'll even ask a colleague to help you out with a fresh pair of eyes. This is usually the last part of the process. Let's look at another technique to improve proactivity in both yourself and others, which is a crucial skill as a manager. But first, your own proactivity. First, you must assess your managerial skills and responsibilities critically. Then consider which of these are your most important tasks. What do they entail? Are they tasks that you can complete alone, or do they involve others? Now try to evaluate yourself and your tasks. Do you carry them out reactively, actively, or proactively? In a moment, we will present a table that you can use to assess this. Any tasks you have indicated as either reactive or active, try to write down one action you can take that might help you to become more proactive. So, Anna, what do you think are your most important tasks as manager?
I think managing my team involves having catch-ups with employees. This is something that I do reactively, I think. I'm happy to have employee catch-ups, but often have to wait to be asked by them rather than arranging it myself. As a manager, it's also important for me to forecast the future of my business.
And how do you think you approach this task?
Again, this is fairly reactive. I find that everyday tasks often get in the way of this. Appraisals are another important task for me as a manager. I do these routinely as scheduled, although I do always leave it until the latest deadline and sometimes have to be reminded. Motivating employees is another important task, which I am proactive at. I regularly hold team meetings to boost morale and energy. Administration is another important task, one you can't avoid. I am active with this. I always complete my administrative tasks to the deadline, but must admit I could be a bit more or take more ownership over it. Arranging training for my employees is another important task. As their manager, it's my duty to make sure they're always developing their skills.
And how are you with this task?
I am reactive. I must admit I often have to wait until employees request specific training because I'm just so busy.
So, what can you do to act more proactively? Here are 3 tasks that Emma has indicated as the tasks that she approaches reactively. Let's look at some of the solutions of how she can improve this.
From now on, I will try to actively seek out my employees and get regular feedback on how they are getting on with their work. This will give me a better overview of my team and how they feel with regards to their workload and ability. I will also set aside time each week for business management and forecasting. I will make sure this is stuck to and that other tasks do not interrupt it. This will give me a greater understanding of the business goals and how we can achieve them. With regards to employee training, I will continually review employee progress and try to identify skills gaps and if there are any suitable or available training that could fill these gaps. This will give me better awareness of the skills gaps and strengths within my team.
Now let's look at the proactivity of others. You can repeat the same exercise with your employees. Ask them to write down their most important tasks and what is involved. Explain the terms reactive, active, and proactive. Ask them to assess their tasks accordingly. With the team, ask everyone to brainstorm ways to become more proactive. Individually, ask your employees to write down ways in which they can become more proactive. The table might end up looking something like this. Again, ask them to work on their reactive tasks. How can they turn these into proactive tasks? I'm going to present an alternative method for encouraging proactivity in your employees. You can use either method depending on which one works best for you. The 3 key elements of becoming more proactive are awareness, action, and reflection. The following exercise is all about practicing these elements. Step 1. Think of a specific situation in which you did not achieve the results that you wanted. Maybe you missed a deadline. Step 2. How did you react? Was this effective? It is important to be aware of your reactions in order to better control your proactivity. Did you become stressed and unable to think straight? This probably decreased your proactivity. Step 3. Is there a better way you could react next time? Sometimes things happen and you make mistakes, like missing deadlines. Maybe next time, instead of panicking, you should try to influence what is within your control. Can you pass off other tasks to colleagues so that you can prioritize the deadline? Or maybe you can negotiate a slightly later deadline. Step 4. Try out this intended behavior. The more you practice, the better you will be. Step 5. What was the result? What did and what didn't work? Review your plan and make changes where needed. If you're still unsatisfied with the result, repeat steps 3 to 5 until you are. To conclude, managers face many challenges at work. Depending on whether you demonstrate reactive or proactive behaviour, it can significantly impact the amount of stress you experience and how well you deal with the stress. To reduce stress, the elephant task technique can help managers and their employees to break down initially daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks. Sometimes it is all about perspective. By analysing your own proactivity and reactivity, you will be able to spot gaps and put into place steps towards becoming more proactive. This technique can also be applied to your employees' proactivity. By encouraging them to complete this activity, they will hopefully find solutions to boosting their own proactivity. That brings us to the end of the webinar. I hope that you are feeling more proactive already. If you would like more tips for preventing burnout and creating resilience, please check out the rest of the SME Tools for Preventing Burnout platform. Thanks.